Hey, this is Max, and welcome to the Ronin System podcast. Today I have a special guest, old coworker of mine, old colleague of mine that is actually doing some pretty interesting stuff. Buddy of mine, Jared. He's starting up a blog called the Champion's Path or The Champion's Path?
It's The Champion's Path.
Champion's Path. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, Jared, why don't you give us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Max. So back in 2005, I joined the Marine Corps. I spent 8 years in the Marines, deployed multiple times in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, Resolute Support. Ended up getting out in 2013, went into the virtual firearms training simulation space, projection-based, virtual reality, augmented reality. Spent several years in that and ended up wanting to spend more time with my family. I am a father of 4, been married for almost 14 years now. I have 4 children. Was spending a lot of time away, with the Marine Corps, with the firearms simulations training all around the world. My AO area of operation was the continental United States as well as OCONUS, so outside of the continental United States, primarily in Southeast Asia. So spent a lot of time out there. Ended up deciding with my wife, Jennifer, hey, it's time to spend more time home. My kids are getting older. So we settled down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I ended up, like you had said, we old colleague, ended up joining a company called Ag Data, doing market analytics, and now I'm a program manager over there. I also do sales with a company called Crisis Response Leadership Training, which is a virtual tabletop simulation. So I'm still within the space, but kind of branched off as a consultant. So that's what I'm doing now. And now I have started up with a couple of buddies of mine, the Champion's Path. So it's a blog that originally was something that I wanted to do as a hobby, really just take that time to take my thoughts and put it down on paper, or digital paper, if you will. And and it ended up turning into an idea of something that we can provide for others who are in a similar mindset, more for that camaraderie, the brotherhood, but then with the mentor-mentee relationships, leadership, and just Stoic philosophy teachings. So that's really where I'm at right now.
So just really quick, going on that tabletop thing. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Like tabletop?
So think of a board game, like tabletop board games.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I wasn't sure.
Right. So typically with the simulations, especially for firearm simulations, which is projection based, it's almost like the Duck Hunt game from the old Nintendo.
Okay, yeah.
And but there's a lot of ballistic properties, data tables, as well as outside influences such as weather conditions, so wind, rain, right? All these different types of weather conditions, and what these typically military and law enforcement agencies will utilize these virtual systems for weapons familiarization. So FAM fires, the U.S. Army Marine Corps, actually all the branches of service uses it for their proof of record. So they'll fire, they'll qual, practice, and then they'll go out to the live fire ranges and shoot their service weapons. In virtual reality is obviously fully submerged, immersive, where they have the headset on, they've got weapon systems, and then augmented reality is a mixture of reality with like virtual targets within a shoe house or what have you. With the tabletop, it's a little different. It's almost like a RTS real-time strategy video game where you have the bird's eye view, and the tabletop simulation is geared more towards the leadership. So like a scene commander that arrives at a crisis situation, in an emergency situation, that has to coordinate with, where are all the vehicles parking, where's mass casualty collection points going to be, where is the certain teams entering, exiting, and the like. So
Yeah.
that's the tabletop in a
Interesting.
nutshell. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the difference between like combat training and like planning and like strategy, like
Correct.
training.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The tabletop is more like chess. It's
Yeah.
like a chess player will think, 2, 3, 4 moves ahead. What are the second order effects? What are the third order effects? Whereas, for instance, in the virtual space, virtual reality, and a split second decision making, whether um, you know, an individual reaches in their pocket for a wallet, or reaches in their to pull a pistol out of a holster, making those split second decisions. You're not thinking about the second, third order effects. It's really self preservation at that point,
Yeah.
and being able to be in safe situations to make those decisions before you're out in the real world having to make those decisions for the first time. So the tabletop is more of a chess match versus the in the moment that virtual reality and the projection based platforms provide.
Yeah, that's actually super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So really quickly, just going back to the champion's path.
Mm-hmm.
Really kind of wanted to talk about, like because I when you first pitched it to me, I felt like it was very similar to what we're doing here. It's like the Ronin System podcast. And really to give some insight on why it's called the Ronin System. Um, I'm taking like the original, not really original, but like one of the original meanings of the word Ronin. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you hear Ronin, like a lot of people they think it's like, oh, those are the like samurai or ninja or whatever, the Japanese guys back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Like and like some people it's like, oh, the sort of like masterless warriors or whatever. But the original meaning, like it literally translates to wave man.
Interesting.
Which, yeah, so like in the Japanese and even Chinese culture, because it's very similar there, it meant like a wanderer, like a nomad.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted that to sort of reflect the original meaning is that, you know, the Ronins, like the Ronin system is meant to revolve around like exploring new paths and getting out
Mm-hmm.
there and essentially like wandering, like kind of like a wanderlust.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it sounds cool too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So for the champions path, I think there's a lot of like crossover where, a lot of our intended ideals and
Mm-hmm.
like my mantra in life, is like you don't get good, you only get better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like always like a constant state of like self improvement and growth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like that's one of the key factors of being a champion, really, in anything, not just in life, but in general. It's just like constantly seeking growth and constantly trying to improve and you know like my wrestling coach's idea of like sometimes happy, never satisfied, I guess. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of similarities there, I think. So I wanted to ask you, like what was your motivation and like what was your sort of like meaning behind the name?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I had said originally, I wanted to put out this blog as a hobby to get my thoughts down, because I was interested, and I've always been interested in becoming a better person. Reflecting on certain situations, uh, understanding what was done correctly, what I could have done differently, how to improve upon that situation for the next time that comes about. And also being a father, it's important to me that I've got to practice what I preach. My kids are my eldest is in middle school now, and then the other three are elementary age. So they're really just at that point of just ingestion of life, where they have influence from peers, they have influence from their teachers, influence from social media sites, and it's like, well, where does their compass point, their moral compass, where does their work ethic come from? And it's, as a father, it's my responsibility to ensure that I guide them appropriately to what I believe is the right path. Right. So I decided, hey, let me go ahead and put my thoughts down on paper so I can really articulate this, break it down so I can reference it and understand who I am, what I believe my roles and responsibilities are now that they're getting older. And so that's how it started, essentially. The name The Champion's Path came about off of nothing special other than I wanted it to be and have this sense of a journey. And it's like the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And it was like, well, it's not the end result, that it's not getting to the top of the mountain that's exciting. It's the path that you take along your hike that's interesting and exciting, and that you learn a lot from. Getting to the top of the mountain is great, but the journey itself. So I didn't want to name it The Journey, and I
Yeah.
just came up. So I came up with The Champion's Path, and I thought it sounded great, and it really aligned with my motivation behind the site itself. And like you had said, I pitched it to several individuals just to see what their thoughts were on the concept itself. Because if this was something that I thought I could benefit from, then why not put it out there so other people can possibly benefit from it as well? And then we could start a thought-provoking discussion on the different articles and topics that I put out there. So that's really how it started, and that was the motivation behind it, was being a father.
Yeah.
And not to take away, but also being a good husband as well. I've been in a few industries that the statistics were against the success of my marriage. Military being one, it has a high divorce rate. The statistics show that, as well as in law enforcement. Now, I wasn't in law enforcement, but they're kind of one and the same, family dynamic, lifestyle. And how it was. And I sat and reflected on how and what was the contributing factors to the success of my marriage. Like I said, I've been married, this August will be 14 years, where the majority of my friends, my buddies, guys that I was in the Marine Corps with, all divorced now. They're broke. Now they had children, so it's a broken home. What did I do successfully? What did Jen and I do together successfully, that we've had this marriage last and will continue to last until death do us part. So
Yeah. Hopefully.
yeah, for sure. And that's that's the motivation behind it.
Okay, yeah, I like that. And I know there's three others, right? It's not just you putting out those
Mhm.
those posts. So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they're
yeah.
all
There's
military guys, right?
yeah, they are. So Ali Fayyad, he was in the Marine Corps as well. Great guy. Um, there's Brant McGee, he was in the Army and the Coast Guard. And then Todd Langley, he was a singleton operator, special operations within the Army. But myself, Brant, Ali, we're not special operators, just those regular running and gunning kind of guys. Yeah, so those are the four initially, that are pushing out articles currently on the site, that are active within the social media circles. Um,
So how did you actually get, like how did you meet them, I guess?
yeah, that's a good question. So I'll start with Brant. Brant is an interesting guy. He was on the Alone series first season, the History Channel's Alone. He's actually a family friend from Albemarle, North Carolina, where I originally came from. And So when I was coming back from Romania in 2016 on a contract, I called him up, and he was currently out in Africa training Burundi troops as a cadre, and I think they were fighting Boko Haram. So he was out there training under AFRICAP contract, training these Burundi troops. I had never been to Africa, and that was one of my goals. It was on my bucket list. Now I've been through the Suez Canal, but I wanted to get boots on the ground. So I shot him a message, and I asked him. I was like, "Hey, are you still out in Africa?" And he was like, "No, I'm back home working for a company called Megit." And I was like, "Well, what the hell's a Megit?" And come to find out, that was the simulations and training company. Um, so that was really the start. Even though he had been a family friend prior, that was really the start in 2016 of a more like intimate professional relationship with Brant. So I jumped on board with him on the teams out at Megit. The company's was bought, and they changed the name to Inveris Training Solutions. But that's how I initially, I guess, started professionally interacting with Brant. Ali, say kind of the same boat. He was in the Marine Corps. We were in the service together, but similar to what I did when I got out, going into the private security sector, he went to on PSD teams, private security details on WIPS contracts, diplomatic embassies for executive protection. He was a mutual, I guess, acquaintance. I was, in our circle, we know individuals, and those individuals know other individuals, and then like those individuals kind of know other individuals that
Yeah,
know who we
yeah.
are. So it's like, I was introduced to him kind of in a similar circle. And he ended up also coming after he came back, I think from uh, Baghdad. He came and worked for Inveris Training Solutions as well. And so that's the professional link to Ali. Todd Langley is the CEO and founder of CRLT, which is Crisis Response Leadership Training. I met him through networking. Really liked his platform, really liked his software. I thought it had a huge requirement within the space, and a not and there isn't a whole lot of competition when it comes to the leadership training within these certain agencies. There's a lot of competition when it comes to the boots on the ground, the guys at the bottom, the patrol officers, the straight leg grunts, the guys that carry the weapons, that need training, right? That deal in certain communication situations. But there's a lot of competition in that space because there's a lot of money in it. But there isn't a whole lot of competition within the senior leadership. So I really liked his software. I really liked his program. So we got to talking, and I jumped on board as a contract consultant and sales personnel on his team.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to imagine also. I mean, I was gonna say like the connection of everyone having military
Mm-hmm.
service experience was like the connecting factor, like a
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really the shoe in,
yeah,
because
yeah,
I've gone to so many events, even like going to the carnival or whatever, and you see the guy with the Marine Corps hat, and you're like, Semper Fi, motherfucker, and it's like, and then you just have a conversation for 20-30 minutes, and then you forget your family is just, eating their cotton candy and whatnot, waiting for you to stop talking to this old guy.
yeah.
But it's the camaraderie, it's the bond, and that is where kind of the champion's path has evolved. So it started as let me put my thoughts on paper. Let me, uh, try to help others who are going through certain similar circumstances, how I overcame them, mainly on leadership and the tenets of that. And then it slowly evolved to, and this was, kind of a running conversation with myself and Ali and Brant. And it was, hey, we could really start very thought-provoking conversations with others who are going through these similar situations, and have a like mentor mentee, um, brotherhood, network support community. And that's really how where it's at right now, is that it's evolved into, let's set up a network of support for mentors and mentees to connect to each other. Because you'll probably like this, Max. There's an old proverb that talks about iron, excuse me, iron. And it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And this quote is such an amazing and thought-provoking quote, because as a mentee to the mentor, you are getting advice, whether it's sharpening your skills. Just like iron sharpens iron, you're sharpening your skills, you're sharpening your knowledge, you're sharpening your character. But what's great about it is that iron sharpens iron, so the mentee also sharpens the mentor himself. So it's just like the old saying that you can do, but teaching is really where you start to learn.
Yeah.
So being a teacher, you are also learning. And to play back on your point of, you go through life, and it's just continuous learning, continuous self-reflection and improvement, and you'll never get to the top of the hill. Like my earlier analogy, it's really the path, it's the hike that gets you higher and higher. And to get to the top is the goal. But being a mentor, you're also continuing to sharpen your own skills and knowledge and character.
Yeah, for sure. Like actually that iron sharpens iron thing is honestly I don't want to say overused,
Mm-hmm.
but it's an extremely common
Mm-hmm.
saying in the martial arts world. I've been doing
Mm-hmm.
jujitsu and martial arts in general for really long time. I think like my Zoom meeting will end soon. What the hell? It doesn't upgrade. Oh geez.
Uh-oh.
Um, we can
Better
start
be
another one.
quick.
Yeah, but it's a really common thing in the martial
Mm-hmm.
arts world. We're always saying that, and specifically in jiu-jitsu too. It's like a lot of the higher level guys and top level guys like myself, we we tend to want to teach more as we get better, just because
Mm-hmm.
that's really the only way that we can start to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Because like there's gonna come a certain point where, as a black belt, like black belts in jiu-jitsu, it takes like 9, 10, 12, 20 years to get it.
Mm.
Whereas
Damn,
in other martial
that's
arts,
crazy.
yeah, in other martial arts like judo, karate, taekwondo, it's you can see a black belt as early as 3 years. On
Mm-hmm.
average, I think it's 4 or 5, sometimes even 6 for the more hardcore places.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's more the beginning of their, like they've mastered the basics and they're moving on from there into like the advanced stuff. Like a lot of those guys, they're not really ready to teach classes or anything. But in jiu-jitsu, like these black belts, they kind of like hit a plateau, because like especially in the smaller, more rural areas, like you get a
Mm-hmm.
black belt and all of a sudden you're the top guy in the area. So like what are you going to do now? You
Mm-hmm.
have to
Right.
start teaching others to sharpen your own skills, like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always going back to like the fundamentals of like, you know sticking with, like, like the kiss thing is like, keep it simple,
Mm-hmm.
stupid. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
it starts to get like that, and that iron sharpens iron. We I mean, I personally don't say it, but a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of my, I guess, peers, the other black belts, they say it quite often, because it really is a very meaningful full saying, even if it is overused. Um,
Yeah, and
because
it might be overused because it is such
yeah,
a
yeah,
great quote, and it really emphasizes on the idea that this growth and improvement is a two-way street, and a lot of people don't, or overlook that sometimes when they get into those leadership positions, is that they get so that tunnel vision where, they're like, I'm the leader. I know, you're the student. Listen to me.
Yeah.
And what's great about this quote is that it does emphasize that, it's two ways. You're constantly learning and sharpening your skills as a leader as well.
Yeah. And so one other thing I wanted to talk to you about as well, like you mentioned chess, and I know you're pretty avid in
Hmm.
chess.
Hmm.
I myself, I try and play chess every day online. Not very good. Like I'm like 900 in the ELO rating.
Yeah, that's novice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But
I got you.
um, like I try and live by this sort of system, and also try and encourage others to live by a system of constant improvement, but also focusing on really three separate things. Like the physical, obviously I have jujitsu, martial arts. I'm an avid fitness guy, and I rock climb, but
Hmm.
also challenging yourself mentally, like with chess. I've started to pick up pool pretty heavily as well. Like the game pool.
Yeah, like the billiards.
Yeah, yeah. I've
Yeah,
picked that
yeah.
up pretty
Hmm.
heavily. And also like a spiritual, not really challenge, but spiritual journey. I'm Buddhist by nature, and
Hmm.
it's something that I do meditate on occasion. And so I wanted to see if you actually have similar thoughts on that as well. It's just to have yourself live by those three sort of systems where you're constantly trying to prove those three.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very similar. It's very important to train constantly for it's like the saying, use it or lose it.
Yeah.
It's like you got to keep your brain sharp, you got to stay physically fit, and you have to stay. And I believe that being spiritual is a very important aspect of being a human being. I'm a Christian, so different than being Buddhist, but still similar in the aspects that there's reflection on a higher power, and to which, you try to strive and emulate. So to go back to chess, I wrote an article called "Why You Should Play Chess Every Day," and I believe that playing chess every day is something that is incredibly important, especially for those of you out in leadership positions. And I don't mean just professionally. Being a father is being a leader. Being responsible for something is being a leader. And the reason why is because you have the duty and responsibility to make good choices for good outcomes. And what's great about chess is that there isn't any dumb luck. It's not any typical board game where you're rolling dice or pulling cards. All the moves are deliberate. And when you lose a match, it's you have only yourself to blame. At some point during the match, you've blundered, you've made some mistakes. You could have won, but you didn't. Right? There's pieces that you could have protected, strategies that you could have implemented. And what's great about chess mentally is that it forces you, if you're playing with purpose, it forces you to sit down and analyze your decision making skills, strategy, accountability, and responsibility, and improve upon that. Physically, it like you had said, for you, I love sweating, man. I don't know, it's weird. I guess I wouldn't have joined the Marine Corps if I didn't.
Yeah.
um, but I find peace. And it's funny because it's like all of those encompass the feeling when I'm working out, whether I'm cycling. My knees aren't what they used to be. I'm almost 40. But so I do a lot of cycling now.
Yeah.
I'll lift free weights, but when I'm on that bike, man, it's just a great therapeutic, like, just disconnect from society when I'm on that. Just all my anxiety and stresses go away. I just feel the air on my face. It's like, it's just great. I don't even know how to describe it. It's
Yeah.
it's
It's like
just,
the
and
release of
I'm sure,
endorphins.
yeah, and I think everybody can find something similar to that, where it's just you're in the zone. you block out all other factors and you're just in the zone. I'm pedaling, I'm sweating, the wind feels great, I'm listening to some music, and I'm just in my own my own universe at that point.
Yeah.
So I also on the spiritual side, I there's a lot of things that I do as a Christian that isn't really mainstream. Primarily celebrate the holidays, Christmas, Halloween, what's the other, Easter, things like that. So I read the Bible, try extract the requirements of what God teaches,
Yeah.
and try to live my life by that. And one of those things is to not follow the traditions of man, and the traditions of man are these specific holidays.
Yeah.
So
Never
I
heard
don't know
it
how
phrased that way.
I don't know how deep you want to go with that, but yeah, so all of those are something that I hold quite high.
Yeah. No, I mean that's awesome. I know we're running out of time on this freaking Zoom thing. Hang
How
on.
much longer do we have?
We have 1 minute.
Okay.
Don't worry. We're gonna continue our conversation with Jared in the next episode. And by the way, how do we actually find the Champions Path?
Yeah, so right now the best way is on Instagram. At the Champions Path is the best avenue. I do have a link tree on there to the website, to the Discord. And then you can also find my personal on Instagram, which is jared.koohestani, JARED.KOOHESTANI.
Cool, cool. For the Champions Path, I actually went to the website.
Mhm.
Do you have
Yeah,
plans to
yeah.
change the website like URL?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think right now it's just the free wix.com.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like jaredkoohestani.wixsite.com/ the champions path. So yeah, I do have plans to change it to the championspath.net. Um, not in any hurry to do that right now. Probably within the next couple of weeks, we'll probably change that over
Okay.
as more articles come out. Ollie, myself, and Brant are more than likely there's talks about starting a podcast.
Okay.
And I think once that kicks off, we'll probably register an actual URL.
Yeah, I use Words wait, no,
WordPress.
WordPress. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
WordPress, and that's for the blog. I actually started a blog
Mm-hmm.
first, and then I use that for the actual website, and I use Podbean for the podcast. I know there's others out there, but Podbean's worked the best for me so far.
Mm-hmm.
I actually pay a subscription to both WordPress and Podbean just to have the domain name and the podcast going. So
Mm-hmm.
just something to think about. If you ever wanted to, talk about the options there, I'm no expert, but I'm available.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure there's something that that I don't,
Yeah.
being a lot further ahead in the game than we are.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so just so that I have the end and starts, that's it for the first part one of Jared Koohestani and the Champions Path. If you like what you heard, feel free to go check out the Champions Path on Instagram. It's the at the Champions Path, and they also have a link tree. I don't have an Instagram, as you all know, but feel free to check it out if you do. Thank you for listening. Get out there, get hungry, and good luck.